Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jerry Angelini, and I am the head of education here at Host Defense Mushrooms. I know we're getting started a little bit late. I'm super sorry. There was a time zone miscommunication. I apologize for that. But today we are going to talk about mushrooms, immunity, and also brains, like, our thinking, our cognitive functioning. So I think with that, I'm just going to jump right in. Let me get this going. Perfect. All right. So before we get started, I do just like to remind people that the presentation is for educational purposes only. There's a lot of scientific data that we go over. If anything is confusing, do not hesitate to throw a question out there for me. I'll try and keep an eye on our chat and our questions. Also, it's important to understand that the information is not to be construed as a panacea for any disorder or disease. The main goal tonight is to inspire self-care and balanced support of our bodies, as well as to bring some really cool information to those of you who may be looking for safe alternative approaches. If you do have a medical condition, please seek a qualified healthcare practitioner. And with that, let's get going. Okay, I have been part of the integrative health community for over 30 years. I can't believe it, but I do have all the grades to show for it. Over the past 10 years, I have been working for Host Defense Mushrooms, bringing scientific data about mushrooms and herbs to communities throughout the US, Canada, and countries in Europe, and even the Middle East. There's a tremendous amount of preliminary research, and there are centuries of traditional use gathered from across the globe. So hopefully you'll find some of this information interesting and maybe even helpful too. That's always great when it's interesting and helpful. Our itinerary for this evening is going to include some fun facts, some history of the mushrooms, what we might want to look for in a mushroom company, some key mushrooms for immune health, and then some key mushrooms for brain health too. Oh, I have a question. Hold on. Can lion's mane be used as an energy buster? I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but it's a good question. Wow, already getting me off the track. If I go off on this one, it'll take me forever to get back on track. So let's just start with some of the basics and some great background. And then when we talk about lion's mane, I'll touch base on that too. All right. So some fun facts about mushrooms. They've been used cross-culturally on just about every continent of the planet, not Antarctica. There's no mushrooms on Antarctica. Mushrooms have been the focus of cave paintings. So an example is up here on the corner. This is from the Tassili Caves in northern Algeria, and they date back over 6,000 years. And this kind of looks like a shamanic figure covered in mushrooms, wearing a bee's mask. Mushrooms have been used as fire starters. They've been used as the punk in early rifles, especially the ones that shoot the round one, like muskets, right? We've used mushrooms for food, obviously, clothing. This hat is a great example of an amadou mushrooms that has been felted and turned into a hat. You can create vests out of these and gloves, very insulating. But they've also been used in health and wellness, and you can see that in our reishi mushroom here, which is one of our favorite all-time mushrooms for sure. Well, maybe I should say it's one of my favorite all-time mushrooms for sure. Mushrooms are pretty much a bridge kingdom between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. Mushrooms are similar to plants in that they both have root structures or root-like structures. Plants are passive in their absorption. However, mushroom root-like structures, these are called mycelium. They even have their own name, right? These are far more active. They secrete enzymes, immune complexes, and even quorum sensing compounds that help them figure out what's going on in their environment and then adapt to change. Humans and fungi share approximately 55% of the same DNA, while humans and plants only share about 15%. Humans and fungi both inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide, and we know plants, they absorb CO2 and release oxygen, right? So it's the opposite. We have a digestive system that does secrete enzymes. We have an immune system, and this keeps us healthy. And then we have senses that give us information about the world around us. So really similar to mushrooms, but mushrooms do that all in direct contact with their environment. There's almost no separation, really. Well, we have like our skin and our intestinal tissues and membranes, and so we're like a distinct being that everything happens inside of that. So there are many of these similarities that make mushrooms particularly helpful for us. And we can, in fact, capture and conserve many of the compounds that mushroom mycelium secrete and use them for our own health and wellness. Each mushroom product can support 2, 3, 4, even more systems of your body all at once. Mushroom products can often replace multiple products to support your health goals. So you can get like one formula that can hit a whole range of activity for you. Research is ongoing. If someone talks about how mushrooms were used traditionally, we want to remember that that's a great jumping off point, but they may not necessarily be working with some of the most recent information. The last 20 years has brought a huge amount of information and research on how whole mushrooms and mushroom mycelium can beneficially impact just about every system of your body. Go to pubmed.gov, Google Scholar. These are pretty good resources for abstracts from peer-reviewed journal articles. And this provides us with more technical and current information. I always question blogs. So blogs are really a lot of times personal experiences. They may not necessarily be referenced appropriately. They may not even be referenced at all. It may be just something that people are passing along like stories. And these can be nice stories for sure. Like, I love hearing about how a particular mushroom helped someone's cat. But what we really want to make sure is that we have the referenced information before we make any like solid decisions about how we might want to use any substance in our day-to-day world. So if that research is too sophisticated, like there are lots of us out here connected with host defense mushrooms, where our job is literally to help translate that data and make it more user-friendly. All right, let's talk a little bit about host defense, what makes it such a great company. Paul is the founder of Fungi Perfecti and Host Defense Mushrooms. He is brilliant. He's a mycologist. He's really like on the cutting edge of research and thought, especially about anything that has to do with mushrooms. He's been a dedicated mycologist for over 40 years. He's written 8 books. He's pioneered numerous techniques in the field of edible, but also functional food mushroom cultivation. His latest book, Mycelium Running: How Mushrooms Can Help Save the World, this has like put his vision of using mushrooms and mycelium to help save ecosystems and improve population health. Really, it's brought it to the world stage. He's received numerous awards and honors for all of these contributions to science that he's made, especially around our beneficial mushrooms. He's also engaged in a diverse range of projects with universities and nonprofit groups. And these are all centered on finding the fungal solutions to global problems. And you can totally check him out on paulstamets.com. And he's got like all of his most recent like stuff up there. You can check out his curriculum vitae and just get a sense. He's a super cool dude. You totally want to check it out. All right. Host Defense also maintains a chain of custody in order to deliver a premium quality product. So we cultivate 100% of all of the mushrooms at our farm in Shelton, Washington, and this is located at the base of the Olympic rainforest. The majority of our samples originate from wild specimens, and we use sustainable cultivation practices to protect the native habitats and the native genomes from over harvesting. Of note, for sure, listen to this part, it's important. Wild harvesting is becoming a large concern among mycologists and environmentalists, especially in regards to chaga and other slow-growing species. We use independent labs with internationally recognized testing methods to verify identity, purity, composition, and safety. We use genetic and biochemical assays for all of those. We test the initial substrate, which is that organic brown rice, or the finished product for pesticides, industrial chemicals, heavy metals, and microbiological assays to verify that the products are contaminant-free. All of this testing is really important, especially when it comes to mushroom cultivation, because the mushrooms are a reflection of the environment in which they're grown. Wild mushrooms are not organically cultivated mushrooms. Mushrooms make really amazing environmental filters, and they do this largely by absorbing whatever's in the environment, but they bioaccumulate that in the mycelium and in the fruit body. So if there are pesticides or heavy metals or other industrial wastes in the environment, those mushrooms are going to clean up that environment, but they're going to concentrate it in their mycelia and the fruit bodies. Wild mushrooms also test positive for something called endotoxin contamination. And this means that they're contaminated with a pathogenic microorganism, or a couple of them. This is because they live in a forest ecosystem, right? This is particularly problematic with immunocompromised individuals. So always take that into consideration too. There are a number of steps needed to organically cultivate and manufacture mushroom products. And we take a huge range of steps to ensure the mushrooms are vital and vibrant. We control that growing environment for the most favorable conditions. We use tested methods of preparation and extraction to optimize product efficacy. We maintain organic status as mushroom growers and manufacturers of products. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. So pretty cool. Host defense is also pretty unique in that we're really using all parts of the mushroom. We're using the mycelium, that's that root structure. We're using the adult fruit body. We're also using the fermented substrate that it's grown in. We don't just focus on one part of the mushroom. We know there's a boatload of research that supports facts that mycelium, the fruit bodies, and the fermented substrate all have something to offer for our health and wellness. So all aspects of the mushroom are rich in health promoting compounds. Let's talk a little bit more about rice. Rice is an excellent food source for both humans and mushroom mycelium. It's naturally gluten-free. It's really well tolerated by most people. The mycelium ferments the rice, and it does this by secreting enzymes that break down fiber and starch, and it basically makes those nutrients readily absorbable by the body. The enzymes biologically convert the rice starches and fibers into novel fermentation metabolites. The mass of the mycelium increases significantly while the grain content decreases it because it's eating the grain. It's being used to create more and more and more mycelium. The fermented rice is no longer just rice, right? It's a fermented food. It's a robust biological response modifier. These highly nutritive compounds include something called arabinoxylanes. These are immune supporting polysaccharides, and they act as immune modulatory substances. The other really great thing about rice is that we can harvest the mycelium and those fermented metabolites in the fermented rice. All of that stuff is lost if you're growing your mushroom on wood, right? Because the mycelium might be in the wood, but you can't eat wood, even if it's fermented by mycelium, right? It's not something that we can digest, right, and absorb. So you can't put wood into a capsule and say, go to town, right? You got to use an edible substance. And this is another important reason why we have rice as our substrate. One final point about host defense I really want to share with you is our stance on ecology and the environment. Fungi perfecti, like just about every person and definitely every business, we all have a carbon footprint. And this can be quite challenging to determine. But because of the importance of the health of the ecosystem and the environment, Host Defense has a dedicated staff person that calculates our complete carbon emissions. This person also supports the company's decision-making processes around carbon reduction business practices and sourcing eco-friendly products, packaging, etc. And this is a great little diagram of really what goes into determining our carbon footprint. You'll see all the upstream factors. This is the direct scope 1 factors about carbon, but then there's also the downstream stuff. So our staff, Tristan, he like has gone through like all of this data to help determine exactly, well, close, what our carbon footprint might be. And Host Defense offsets more than 100, it offsets 110% of our annual scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon emissions. And this, like I said, includes upstream and downstream carbon emissions to make sure that we, in fact, offset this really powerful carbon experience in the world. If this is something that's interesting to you, if you want to find out more, check out hostdefense.com. You can find out the certifying processes as well as some of our global carbon offsetting projects that we support. So come join us. It's important to us too. We want to make sure that there's a planet for all of us to live on, and not just healthily. We want the planet to be healthy too. All right. Just to let you know, we are recording this. So if you missed some at the beginning, don't worry about it. You can come back and watch it again. Or if you find something that you may have missed, you can, again, watch it again to make sure you get all this great information. As we move into the immune response, we want to remind people that immune health isn't just making sure that your immune cells are strong. We also need to make sure that they're balanced, that they don't underfunction or overfunction. And as you can see on this chart, overreactive immune responses are as problematic as underreactive immune responses. So supporting a balanced immune response is really key in day-to-day health and well-being. And this is why for the average individual, and some of us that may not be so average in terms of immune responses, it's still important to balance the immune system as an end goal as compared to just stimulating the immune response. So even if you're doing something like fighting infections, if we overstimulate the immune response, these immune cells can send messenger molecules like cascading throughout the whole bodies. And we got to remember that many of these cytokines are inflammatory in nature, and they make us feel worse, even though they're trying to, help our immune system function better. So helping that immune system work strongly without overreactivity is critical. We like to call this the Goldilocks zone, right? Not too hot, not too cold. It's got to be just right. And there are 4 basic phases of the immune response in a healthy individual. There's engagement, there's recruitment, there's clearance, and then there's something called watchful waiting. And it all starts with engagement, right? This is when the immune system encounters a perceived threat. This may be from the environment, it may be internally, right? Maybe from trauma, but it engages the immune response into action. The second stage, we call it recruitment. And this is where all those immune cells recruit each other in fairly complex ways. That immune response is really hard at work here, and it can create many of the feelings that we have when we're not at our best. The third stage is clearance, and this is a set of processes that help clean up the wreckage that is often occurring from an engaged immune response. And then finally, we have watchful waiting. And this is making sure that our immune system is able to respond to whatever next perceived threat occurs. Modulation, that piece in the middle, occurs to help manage the immune response and ultimately pacify it. Modulation monitors the situation and ultimately brings the system back to a state of alert, watchful waiting. And these may seem like stages, but the process isn't really linear. And in a healthy immune response, modulation occurs throughout the whole process, and it helps keep our immune system functioning within normal limits with a set of feedback loops. But in order for our bodies to thrive, we really need to be able to engage, recruit, and modulate this response really rapidly. We want a flexible and responsive immune system. Again, you don't want it underactive. You don't want it overreactive either. So again, that Goldilocks zone. Okay, yes, Wen Huang, I will get to that, your question, a little bit later. I also wanted to touch base on the microbiome, especially when it comes to immune health. And our microbiome is the sum of all of the microbes that are in our digestive tract. At least that's our intestinal microbiome, right? We do have a dermal microbiome, we have mucosal microbiome. So there are different sets of organisms at different places and parts, not just in our body, but also like in our intestinal tract too. Our immune system has co-evolved along with this diverse set of, especially intestinally, gut flora. And this not only helps create a defense against pathogens, but it also helps us develop a tolerance for our beneficial microbes, right? And as a consequence, the immune system and the intestinal microbiome have developed this mutualistic relationship. And they, in fact, regulate each other and they cooperate to support each other, especially our probiotic microflora. This is so important, in fact, that about 70% of our immune cells are found in the intestinal tract. And so it has a huge impact on systemic immune functioning. As we grow, that microbiome shapes and helps develop our immune response. The immune system also shapes and helps manage the composition of the microbiota too. And so there's this communication and mutual regulation that's maintained throughout our life. And it's really one of the foundational aspects of healthy immune functioning. So in terms of how does this tie into our beneficial mushrooms? Well, many of our mushroom species function as prebiotics for our probiotic microflora. That means that they feed our good bacteria. A number of these beneficial mushrooms can also significantly improve the health and functioning of our intestinal lining. So all of this has an important impact on immune health overall, not just intestinally, but system-wide. Research on mushrooms continues to uncover this quickly increasing number of beneficial impacts that they can have for just about every system of our bodies. Okay, let's move on to some of our favorite mushrooms. Reishi, this is one, hold on please. I have the rolly ball, so it's going to take a second here to make sure it's working well. Well, I hope. Okay, I'm just going to go on. Hopefully it'll come back and it'll let us know what's going on. So reishi. Oh, there it is. Ta-da. This is one of our strongest immune modulatory mushrooms. So like in the mushroom world, we love reishi to help create that balance. It engages immune cells for an effective defense. It also increases immune signaling to keep the immune system balanced and working within appropriate levels. Reishi is really ideal for our sensitive people. It's really gentle in its activity, but it has this really profound impact on helping balance the immune response. Reishi also can support cardiovascular health, and it balances the immune response in the blood and in the vascular endothelium, and that's the inside lining of your blood vessels. Reishi gently supports energy and stamina. This is in muscle tissue, heart tissue, just general adrenal energy. It's a great adaptogen for physical and psychological stressors. It helps reduce that fight or flight mechanism and engages our parasympathetic or rest and digest. It's really important when we're talking about immune health because adrenal functioning and stress have a profound impact on immunity and triggering inflammatory processes. So reishi calms the Shen in traditional Chinese medicine, which is calming that heart and calming our spirit and helping us stay more able to manage stressors in our life. Reishi also supports our probiotic microflora. It's a research recognized prebiotic. And then finally, reishi may function as a really powerful antioxidant in various aspects of your body, but specifically in your liver tissue. And this can help support liver function. It's great as an antioxidant in muscle tissue, but also in nerve tissue as well. So for reishi, you can find it in things like capsule and in liquid form. For most people, the capsule is great. It's great for daily use. The liquid is if you want more immediate support for that immune modulatory activity, if you want a little bit more balance in your immune response. That liquid is rapidly absorbed. It is in alcohol though, so some people don't tolerate that well. So just stick with that capsule and that'll do well for you. Turkey tail is also very well researched, especially in immune support. Bastyr University and the University of Minnesota studied host defense turkey tail in women who had undergone surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy for breast health. Turkey tail was found to strongly support the immune system rebound, even under these very challenging conventional interventions. The turkey tail supports liver health and function. It also supports our gut ecosystem, right? It is also a prebiotic and supports our probiotic microflora in the intestinal tract. Want to take a moment here to talk a little bit more about the research on host defense turkey tail and also the fermented rice, because sometimes people out there are like talking about like, you know, is the rice really active or not? We know for sure it is. The research was completed by an independent lab. It's called Natural Immune Systems Incorporated. It's been published in open sourced peer-reviewed scientific journals. And here are some key takeaways for you. That research validates that the mycelium and the fermented rice products are both immunologically active. But it also told us that it's complementary. So that mycelium and the fermented rice both engage immune responses. They get the immune cells up and running. The fermented rice significantly supports immune modulatory activity. The mycelium and the fermented rice both support day-to-day tissue regenerative activity as well. So this is really great information. Both the rice, the fermented rice, and the mushroom mycelium support that full range of immune functioning. Agarikon, this is another favorite mushroom species at host defense. It does support targeted and modulated immunity. It supports the immune system's ability to identify and target pathogens, whether they're extracellular or intracellular, and that's important too, right? The preliminary research indicates that it helps the immune response function appropriately, gets it going, helps recruitment, supports tissue regenerative activity, and then helps the system return to a state of watchful waiting. Stamets 7 is our daily immune support formula. And the preliminary research shows that Stamets 7 has a synergistic immune supportive activity. The blend showed greater function as a formula compared to each of the 7 species tested individually and then measured and averaged for activity. So basically, this is synergistic. The sum is greater than the end result is greater than the sum of the different parts. So like really powerful in terms of its synergistic functioning. Stamets 7 contains equal parts of 7 mushrooms, and these all work together to support just about every system of your body. You've got brain and nerve functioning support from lion's mane, cardiovascular health from reishi and cordyceps, lung functioning support from cordyceps and reishi and chaga, liver health by every single mushroom, digestion, every single mushroom supports that. Muscles and energy are cordyceps and reishi and chaga. These all support, all the mushrooms will either strongly or gently support energy as well. So, and some of these like cordyceps and reishi we're really familiar with as adaptogens that support energy. All right. We do have 3 products that all talk about immune support, right? So this is how you can like differentiate between them if it's a little bit confusing. So Stamets 7, this is your daily immune support, right? I just talked about it. It supports your immune response in just about every system of your body. Just a great all-around constitutional support. MycoShield is the next layer. And this is what we sometimes like to call the first layer of defense, right? It's your shield for your immune response, right? So if you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, whether it's because you're in contact with lots of people, or maybe you're a little bit tired and you haven't had enough rest, or maybe you've just been around someone who's sick, right? Even if you're starting to feel a little bit off yourself, MycoShield is the great product. 3 to 4 sprays, 3 to 4 times a day in your mouth, just your mouth, nowhere else. There is some alcohol in there and either cinnamon or peppermint essential oil. So, you know, just your mouth. Really tasty. That cinnamon, peppermint are great breath fresheners. And they help you with this My Community spray that you can use on the go. You can throw it in your pocket, your backpack, your purse, your briefcase, whatever. My Community is the big guns. This is the formula that you're going to go to when you really need some deep immune support. You've got 17 different mushrooms in this formula, right? So if you really want to get that immune system up and running, you can do 2 capsules, 3-4 times a day. Like you're really not feeling too well and you want to kind of reinforce that healthy immune balanced functioning, right? Yeah, you can take 2 capsules every day if you want. But we really like that Stamets 7 is that daily immune support because of the equal parts of the 7 mushrooms to help your whole body too. So Stamets 7 for daily, Myco Shield for that proactive support, and then My Community for that comprehensive high intensity support. All right, beyond immunity, more people are concerned about long-term brain and memory health, right? We the neurological tissues these are some of our most metabolically active tissues. They only weigh about 2% of the body. That's it. That's not a lot, but our brain and our nerves use up to 70% of our glucose and up to 25% of your body's nutrients. They're always going and firing, right? Fats are some of the most important nutrients for our brains, right? Because a lot of the neurological tissue uses essential fatty acids. Trans fats and oxidized fats are some of the most dangerous foods out there for our brain and our nerves. They damage cell membranes. They trigger inflammatory responses in the body and the blood. So we do need to feed our bodies with healthy fats, lots of green veggies, right? The nerves love B vitamins like B12 and methylfolate, but really all those B coenzymates are great for our nerves too. Throughout our lives, the brain's job is to help us make sense of the world and to help oversee our daily operations in life. And so brain health refers to the ability to remember, to learn, to play and concentrate, maintain a clear and active mind. It's about information management, logic, judgment, perspective, wisdom. Our brains are constantly shifting through this overload of sensory information that it picks up every second. And we've got to figure out, and our brains need to figure out what's essential and what isn't necessary and what can we just go off to the, let off to the side. So yeah, we definitely need to hear the car that's coming pretty quickly so that we can react or move, right? But we don't need to pick up on the conversation that's happening 2 tables down at the restaurant. Unless you want to see what's, really going on in the world, right? But, if you, you don't need it, right? But more and more people talk about how they feel like their overall brain function has been slipping from maybe an A, maybe an A+ for some of us to maybe a C or a C- in its functioning. So how do we optimize our brain and nerve functioning in this really overly stimulated world? And we know that there's a lot of information that comes to us. There's facts, there's knowledge, there's theories, there's ideas. But for many people, brain fog is being reported by more and more individuals. And it's characterized by that feeling that our thinking is compromised. Words don't come as easily as they used to. Maybe things take a little bit longer for us to grasp. We may find ourselves walking into a room and just being like, what the heck did I come in here for, right? So if some of this sounds familiar to you, we want to figure out how we can support our brain and neurological tissue and optimize our cognitive functioning, memory, clarity, and even mood, right? But we also know that this can sometimes become more challenging as we age. So lion's mane. Lion's mane is our rock star when it comes to brain and nervous system health. It supports cognitive functioning. It supports memory, mood, It supports nerve health throughout our whole bodies. It supports nerve tissue regenerative activity. It does function as a prebiotic for our probiotic microflora. And this is one of the reasons why it's been called the smart mushroom, right? One thing that I do want to just like is lion's mane an energy booster. So lion's mane does support energy gently over time. It's nothing like cordyceps where like you take some cordyceps and if it's liquid cordyceps in 5 minutes, like you're ready to go. Like let's do it. Let's do whatever we need to do, right? Lion's mane, it will gently help rebuild the constitutional energy over time, but it could take months, right? So that's not our mushroom specifically for energy, but that doesn't mean it won't help our energy over time if we're dedicated to it, especially if we're wanting to help things like cognitive functioning and memory and mood. We might find that if we've just added lion's mane, that over time it may also support our energy. We've got Mycobotanicals brain. It contains 3 mushrooms, lion's mane. We talked about reishi and cordyceps. Reishi is another strong supporter for neurological functioning. It has some great antioxidant activity for nerve tissue. It supports cognitive functioning. It can support mood as well. And reishi can also support nerve tissue regenerative activity. Cordyceps, great antioxidant for nerve tissue. It can provide us with a lot of energy too, right? So that can be helpful. It can give us that lift. And in that way, so if people are like, they're feeling just blasé and they're like just not feeling like very involved, or they lack that joie de vivre, right? Cordyceps can help revitalize us and help our memory and mood and cognitive functioning in that manner as well. So those 3 mushrooms are awesome. We've also got 3 herbs, Bacopa, Gotu Kola, and Ginkgo. Bacopa supports short-term memory recall. It helps balance the mood. Gotu Kola supports cognitive functioning. It's a great tonic for your whole body too. It's known as the like be here now herb, right? It brings us and focuses us in. So concentration, right? So for those of us that have a squirrely mind, Gotu Kola is great. Ginkgo, many people are familiar with ginkgo. It supports memory, but it also supports microvasculature, and that can be really helpful. So altogether, the mushrooms and the herbs support brain and nervous system functioning, cognitive health, memory, mood, even nerve regenerative activity. One interaction to be aware of with ginkgo is blood thinners. So if you're on blood thinners, definitely think about using lion's mane all on its own. All right, as we wrap up our presentation, here are some key concepts. Hopefully you're going to remember. A host defense mushroom, mycelium, and the fermented rice are both immunologically active, and together they support the full range of immune responses. Stamets 7 is great for daily immune health. A Myco Shield is perfect for immune support on the go. And for those times that you want to add immune support if you're in contact with lots of people, right? My Community is the comprehensive immune support for when you really want to get your immune system into the fight. And then, of course, some of our favorite mushrooms like lion's mane and reishi also support cognitive functioning, memory, and mood. And finally, host defense mushrooms are tested for identity, purity, composition, and safety, but also for efficacy. So you can trust in host defense mushrooms. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I apologize for coming in a little bit late with that time. Like, I wasn't sure what part of the country I was supposed to be giving this lecture tonight. So thank you again so much. Again, this is being recorded, so you can come back and listen to this again. There are some questions that have come up, and Victoria, thank you so much for putting these in. Can you open up the capsules if you can't take the pills? Absolutely. You can open up those capsules. You can put them in like your morning coffee if you want. They're actually very tolerable in terms of their taste. You can just put them right in your mouth. You can put them in some applesauce or in your oatmeal. It's all good. Can you take too much? Well, sure, you can take too much of anything, including water, right? The research on the host defense mushrooms has gone up to 6 and 9 grams, and we're actually doing some human clinical trials with 12 grams. And right now, it all looks like it's really well tolerated. So from that perspective, there's no safety issues that we're finding at this point in time for that much. Now, the question is, what's your individual tolerance level? Some people are like, I take a gram of this, a gram of that, and a gram of a third mushroom. That's 3 grams. That's awesome. Some people really superpower their mushrooms and may take up to 6 grams a day. Really listen to your body, know what you're going for, what are your goals and health goals, and am I using the best product I can for the goal that I'm going for, because these can be a little pricey. So you want to make sure that you're not just wasting money, but like 1 gram, 2 grams a day is great for just general all around health and wellness and immune support. 3 to 4 grams for when you really want to get things going, like you're like, yeah, let me really focus in on something, and then 5 to 6 grams if you really want to supercharge your health goals. Can kids take mushrooms? With kids, I tend to stick with a couple of the edible species in certain circumstances. So lion's mane, not a problem. Great edible mushroom. Kids respond really well to it. I tend to not use the brain product for kids off the bat. I try and see if that lion's mane will do the trick. Can take a couple of weeks for it to kick in. So stick with it for about 2 to 3 weeks. If it's not working the way you want to, then maybe consider using a half a capsule of the brain formula with a younger, 5 and older, I'd say. And then, for like your teens, you can do like, depending upon their weight, if they're way over 100 pounds, then you can do 1 capsule at breakfast and 1 at lunch. Maitake is another edible mushroom that's great for immune support. It also helps with glycemic balance and pancreatic health. Another formula that I will use with children is the Breathe formula. And this is, of course, just like it says, it kind of helps open up those lungs and breathe easier. But you're not going to use as much. You might use a half a capsule with kids, depending upon their size. You can just use the reishi all on its own with kids. It's really well tolerated by most children. But again, you're going to look at how much do they weigh. If they weigh 50 pounds, I'd use about 1/3 of what I would use with an adult. Okay. Cordyceps. What's cordyceps? Cordyceps is a mushroom that's been used in traditional Chinese medicine to revitalize the system. It's an energizing mushroom. It opens up the lungs. It helps us breathe more deeply. It increases the oxygen that gets into our blood when we breathe. So amazing revitalizer and oxygenator. It's super energizing though. So unless you're going to be up all night long because like you got to drive, you really keep your cordyceps to the morning and early afternoon. So yeah, just like some people will try it. They'll be like, well, I don't know if that's, I'm going to try it at night, and then they're up for hours. And just remember back to this if you do that. And some of us like to test boundaries anyways, right? You can have fun with it. Go out, enjoy yourself, go to a club, go to a pub, or listen to some music. You'll enjoy yourself. Cordyceps is that invigorating, but also like it makes us feel good too. Okay. Why mycelium over the fruit body? It's a great question. So host defense, we've been doing our research on mycelium. We do use some fruit bodies in some of our liquids. So like the liquid reishi has both the mycelium and fruit body extract. The research on the mushroom mycelium and the fermented rice it's just brilliant. And this has really been our focus. I don't say like one is better than the other. We haven't done a whole bunch of research on our fruit bodies. We know there's a lot of research out there in general on fruit bodies, but there's some really powerful research on that full range of immune modulatory activity that occurs with the mycelium. And it looks very different than the research on the fruit bodies. So yeah, okay. How about eczema? This one particular person has been making a multi-mushroom tea with 7 species, but he gets eczema from, or she gets eczema from cancer meds. Uh, yeah, so yeah, that's a tough one. So if you're on medication that can cause like inflammatory responses in other tissues of the body, the mushrooms may not help with that. You really, like if you're on cancer medication, you really want to work with an integrative healthcare practitioner on that. So an integrative oncologist. We want to make sure that like if you're going to use complementary substances and supplements, that it doesn't interact with your medication in an untoward manner. We want to make sure that that medication works, but we also want to make sure that the rest of your body functions optimally. So there are some mushrooms that may be helpful and don't appear right now to have adverse events with most medication. Really, we haven't studied mushrooms with the new biologics. So those cancer medications that unlock the immune response. I haven't seen any research on that yet. So I hesitate to suggest anything like that. The chemotherapy that is cytotoxic, that goes after those cancer cells specifically, some of those mushrooms can be helpful in that process. Like just making the rest of your body function better, like lion's mane can help with some of the brain fog that comes with it. Turkey tail can help liver detoxification pathways. Reishi can also help balance the immune response as well. So again, though, because like every person's situation is different, you want to work with an integrative practitioner. So, but it's possible that it could be helpful. For thyroid support, interestingly enough, that's like there's like 2 systems of the body that really don't have a lot of research on them at all. So with thyroid, you can look at reishi as an immune modulator. So if it's an immune response and an immune impact on your thyroid, then reishi may be helpful. Again, you definitely want to work with your practitioner around that. Hypothyroid, not really, sorry. So in terms of different cancer types, we can't really talk about what mushroom is going to be most effective for different cancer types because there's some pretty clear restrictions on cancer treatment. What I can talk about is just supporting your immune response. And turkey tail is a great mushroom for supporting the immune response. And it does not have any impact on hormone regulation. So, and this is one of the challenges that can happen with certain cancers. They can be hormone responsive, right? But turkey tail is just this great immune engager and modulator that has no impact on the hormonal system. So think about turkey tail, maybe 3 or 4 grams a day to really get that immune system up and running. You definitely want to work with your integrative practitioner on this too. Concussion. lion's mane. We just come back to that over and over again. One of the challenges with long-standing like post-concussion syndrome is that it can just take time for the body to recuperate. We definitely want to think about 2, maybe 3 grams of lion's mane a day. It's going to help you, like your whole body just function better neurologically. So that's the kind of the kind of direction I would have you take a look at. You can think about the brain formula with it. So maybe you want to do a gram or 2 of lion's mane and a gram of the brain formula together. You've got, of course, that lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps with the bacopa, gotu kola, and ginkgo in there. So again, no blood thinners though. So lion's mane is really safe for daily use. If you don't have any medication issues or you don't have any bleeding issues, then think about brain along with it. Okay. A neuropathy and like burning, pain management. So again, we're looking at anything that has to do with lion's mane. We can consider reishi as part of that too. They both help with just like reducing that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight mechanism. And when we're in pain, that fight or flight mechanism is engaged. You do want to be careful about things like blood thinners or other medication. Just, we always like to be careful about those things, but maybe a gram of lion's mane and a gram of reishi, it's going to take time. You're going to need to give yourself some time, especially if it's a long-standing issue with neuropathy. Okay, I'm trying to read it. In terms of the recording, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure the store will have access to this recording. That's what I'm guessing. So I would check back in with the store that's, our the Healthy Planet, and just say that you went to the Host Defense lecture and we're hoping to have access to the recorded webinar or consumer lecture. Someone is suggesting that chaga can reduce thyroid antibodies, increase natural killer cell response, activate immune pathways. So, here's the thing. Again, we're looking at antibodies, right? So basically you're looking at how chaga may or may not impact the immune response in relationship to the thyroid function. There can be a number of different reasons why your thyroid is either under functioning or over functioning. It's not always immunologically triggered. So it could be something going on with your pituitary gland. It could be something with T3 or T4, or like some of the other triggers in the whole system that manage that thyroid functioning. So we do know that reishi is one of our strongest modulators of the immune response. Is great. You can take a look at chaga too. One thing about chaga that is, again, from the wild is that it may have endotoxin contamination. And this is particularly important for someone who's already immunocompromised. So really strongly suggest that you work with sustainably cultivated. Someone else answered back that they think that the recorded webinar gets emailed out to all of the registrants, which is awesome. Yeah, T3 is part of that too. TSH, and I mean, so there's a whole, like for someone else that was talking about the thyroid. So there's a whole bunch of different hormones that are working in conjunction with that. So yeah, I think that's all of the questions. I'm just looking through them again. Yeah, that looks to be it. Oh, the brain mushroom. Yeah, the smart mushroom. That is lion's mane. So lion's mane is the mushroom all on its own. And then we have a brain formula. So host defense or mycobotanicals brain. And that has the lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, along with bacopa, gotu-kola, and ginkgo. You are most welcome. I hope everyone enjoyed this. If there are any other questions that come up, reach out to the Healthy Planet, and they can get in contact with the tall grass representative that represents host defense mushrooms for us. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. I hope this was helpful and informative. Thank you all for hanging in there with my time change mess up. You guys are awesome. I hope you all have a wonderful September and hope to see you all back on another consumer lecture soon. Take care.